Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this employee photo directory template, and it's not limited to using it to organize information for employees. You could use it for your church directory, organization directory, etc. So first, here is the database, which is a collection of information in a table. If you're using it for your employees, it would be the employee information and things related to them. And here is a photo directory. Essentially, every single employee that has been entered into the database, you're able to pull up a little summary of them, and you can customize this to whatever your use case is. So if you want to change these things around, you should be able to do that, and I'll show you exactly how to get that done in today's tutorial. As usual, here is the checklist that we're going to be going through, and I also organize my videos, and I will do it with this video as well, into chapters. That way it's easier for you to follow, because these types of videos tend to be long because it is a step-by-step tutorial. All right, that being said, we have covered the template overview, so let's go ahead and cross that off. The next thing we're going to do is create the setup tab. This is essentially going to create all of the drop downs for our table, so it's a lot easier to enter in information. So I'm going to create a new tab by clicking add sheet. And then what I always do with all of my sheets is to clean it up. And that means I select everything. I change the font, I change the directions and the alignment, and then I remove excess rows and columns. You don't have to do this for the templates to work. I do it just because it makes it easier for me. So what I'm going to do is quickly take a peek at the setup tab. So I'm going to need 1 to 13 and 8K. So I'm going to go select this, highlight all of them, delete, click on 14, highlight all of them and delete. Next, we're going to create these columns here. I'm only going to create 10 rows per column, but you can expand it to fit your specific needs. So go here and highlight every other column. And I'm doing this because I like to have a border column between each column. So these are going to be the border columns, and these are going to be the columns with data in them. Right click, resize, and I'm going to do 300. Select all of these border columns. By the way, to select more than one column at a time, I'm doing this by clicking on Command in my MacBook. I believe in Windows it would be Control. Right click, resize, and I'm going to do 30. I'm going to resize the rows, select all of them. Right click, resize, and I'm going to do 30. So the first thing we're going to do is create the header for this first table. So click on that header section, go to borders, select the border color you want to use. I'm going to use this dark gray color, and I'm going to make sure that the thickness is this style, the first one, and I'm going to use it outer border. And I'm going to create the border that's around the actual table, so without the header, and do the same thing. Next, I'm going to create the internal border. So select the internal part of the table, go back to borders. I'm going to change the color to this lighter color and change the style to this. You don't really have to do it this way. You can do it whatever way you want. It doesn't change how the template works. It's just purely aesthetic. I'm going to use these horizontal borders to ensure that I'm only adding that style to the internal border. So click on that. And now you can't quite see it because we have the grid lines on. I will turn it off in a second so you can appreciate what this actually looks like. Next, I'm going to put some colors in the header. So we're going to click that header, go to colors, and instead of selecting any of these colors, I try to use this custom color because it helps me change the colors easily if I change my mind. So I'm just going to click on this just to show you how it works. Click done. So it takes us back to the list of all the preset colors. Here's the one I selected. Now, you don't have to necessarily use all the colors that comes with this preset. I do because, to be honest, they look nice and cohesive. But let's say you select this and you don't like one of the colors, you can easily change them to whatever color you want, okay? But like I said before, this makes it so much easier if later on you change your mind, you want to change the colors, but you don't want to go back to every single part of the template to change them. All right, so I'm just going to close that out and select the header again and assign this color. I'm going to copy this same format for the rest of the table. So select the table, go to paint format, click on it, and just paste it right here. And just repeat that step until all 5 tables are completed. And I'm going to now remove the grid line so you can see what it looks like. So here's what we have. I'm just going to rename this setup tab. Let's go back to the example. So we need to add the placeholder information. Now, we're using this as an example. Remember, you can modify this to fit whatever your needs are. In this example, it's going to be employee information. So it makes sense to have things like employment status, employment type, position, department. However, if you're using it for a different purpose, just tailor this table to your specific needs. To make things easier, I'm going to use the exact same placeholder information. So I'm copying everything here, and I'm going to go here, right click and paste values only. Let's say you were using this for a different purpose. Let's say training status, and you can add completed, pending, something like that. So you're just typing the text here. It's as easy as that. So I'm going to go back to the original. I think I prefer the headers to be bold, so select all of them at once and bold. All right, so this part is done. Let's go back to our checklist. We've completed the setup tab, and the next thing we're going to do is create a database table. Here is the database table. It's pretty straightforward. It's a big table with all of the information that we will be collecting for each individual that we're putting into the database. So now I'm going to click on add sheet one more time, database 2, return to the database just to get an idea of the columns and the rows that I need. I need up to S, and I'm not going to bother changing the rows. We'll just keep it as is. So go back here and just delete everything after S. Okay. And then I'm going to select everything all the way down and right click and resize the rows to 30. I'm going to create a border that goes around the table. So I'm going to select A, S, right click and resize this to 30. And this would be the top border around the table. Select these two. This is going to be the main header. Okay, so we're going to put a border around that. Change the color to this color and merge. And you can call this whatever you want. So I will just name this employee database. And I'll change the font to something bigger, make it bold, and add a color. All right, so that's the header. Now we're going to add the header for the table, and we'll do that here. First, start by adding the border. Then I'm going to use my shortcut key to select everything. And for MacBook, it's Shift Command down arrow. Okay, and that selects the entire table, which allows me to put the outside border for the table. Next, select the entire table, this time without the header. Okay, using the same shortcut keys. And now I'm going to put in internal borders. And I like to use lighter colors, so go ahead to the border color, use this one, and add horizontal borders and add vertical borders. And actually for the vertical borders, I will change it to the first style. Okay, so it's a solid while the horizontal borders are the dotted one. Okay, remember you can use whatever you want. This is purely aesthetic. Use whatever you find appropriate for your needs. Some of these things are not visible because we still have the grid on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off now. Turn off grid line. So here's what it looks like. Here I'm missing some lines. So go ahead and select everything and add that vertical internal border. Now, finally, you can add whatever color you want for the header. So let's use this color. All right, let's go back to our example to see what we need to do next. So we've created everything here. Perfect. So now we're going to start adding information to make things quicker and faster because I'm recreating this exact table. So I'm going to copy the text from this table into this one. So I'm right clicking and adding the text, values only. So we have name, image, employee ID, their birthday, gender, start date, position, department, phone number, email address, manager or supervisor name, employment type, status, termination date, years of service, anniversary date, and notes. Before we put in the placeholder data, we're going to do some modifications. Start with the name. I'm going to adjust this because I know that the column needs to be wider for names. Next thing we're going to do is add drop down. So go back to the example. We're going to add these drop down selections here. Go back to our database, select this column. You don't have to select all of them, just a few of it is fine. And you can go insert and drop down or data validation. And instead of drop down, we're going to go drop down from range. And right here, as you can see, we only selected to row 12. You can just remove 12 and it's selected all the way down. And next we're going to select the range that contains the drop downs for gender. So click on this icon, go to setup tab, and we're going to select these rows. So just click on the first one, drag all the way down, click OK. And now if we go back here, you can see that it has added a drop down to the entire table. Now we can click on advanced setting and add a few more things. So if you wanted to change the style to arrow or to even plain text, you can do that as well. I'll leave it as chip for now and assign colors. So assign this color to male, this color to female, and other. And of course you can add more options. So if you go back to the setup tab, you have lots of room to add whatever options you need to add. Now we're going to click on done and go back to our database, and you can see the options show up here. Next, we're going to add the date option. So we want to add a date picker option here. So when we double, that little calendar pops up and we can select the dates we need. So to do this, do the same thing, select a few of them, add rule, and change this from drop down to is valid dates, and reject the input and show help if you want this to show up with instructions just in case other people are using this template as well. Remove 14 and it will select the entire column G and click done. Now if we double click here, the calendar pops up. Go all the way down, double click, it shows up here because I removed the row number to allow it to apply that to the entire template. Okay, next we're going to add drop down to position title. The same steps, select a few of them, add rule, drop down from range, click on the icon, go back to our setup tab, and we're going for position title. So select everything here. I'm going to remove the row number so it applies to everything. Leave it as chip, click done. Back here you can see it shows up as we need. And Just going to make this wider, account for some of the titles that are wider. Do the same for departments. Now, if the managers are also going to be in this database, what you can do is add a drop down. So we're going to click on manager's name, click on add role, remove the row, change it to drop down from range, and then select data range. Scroll all the way down to names. Okay, so we're going to assume the manager is going to be part of this database. So instead of typing their name again, since we already added it here, we're just going to select it. So we're going to select these, and we can use the same technique of selecting some rows, removing the number, and this would allow it to select everything. And then same thing, click done. When we go here, you can see that the drop down is blank, and that's because the name section is blank. So let's add an example. Okay. And when we go here, it shows up right here. Okay. And let's do the next one. Employment type, the same thing. And the next we have termination date. This would be the same thing that we did here, which is to add the date picker option. For the years of service, we need to add a formula that would calculate the years of service from the start date relative to today's date. So let's go back to our example. We're going to grab the formula from there. And here is the column with the formula. So if we double click, you can see the formula here. And G5 is the start date right here. So that is correct. We're going to copy this formula. And you can pause the video and copy the formula. And this is a good place to mention my Patreon. I do have a Patreon, and I'll leave the link in the description box. If you're part of the Patreon, you will get this template that we are creating today. So if you don't want to worry about getting the formulas correct, sign up for my Patreon. Not only will you get access to this template, you get access to all of the templates that I have created for all of my YouTube videos. I will leave links in the description box. Thank you so much for my current Patreons for your support. All right, so pause the video, copy this formula. I'm going to scroll down here, paste the formula here, click enter. We do have an error message, so I'm going to double click on the formula. I'm going to look for G5. Okay, so the problem is that there's a slight difference between this template and the other one, and it's because G5 here is the title, whereas in my template example, G4 is the title. So we can easily fix that by going to the formula, and anywhere we have G5, we're going to enter G6. Change G5 to G6 here and do it one more time and hit enter. And now there's no error message. It's blank because we don't have any entries yet, but once we start putting in entries, the formula will show the correct response. Now I'm going to copy this formula and select the entire column all the way down, right click, paste special, and paste formula only. Now if I double click here, you can see it's selecting G991, and when I scroll down, G99 is correctly selected. Next, we want to do the anniversary date, and we're going to automate this as well by adding a formula here. Go back to our example. Here is the formula. The formula is taking two things into account: the start date and the employment status. So it's going to calculate an anniversary date for only active employees. So if we double click, you can see in addition to the start date, which is in G5, it's also referencing column N5, which is the employment status. And this forces the formula to only calculate an anniversary date for active employees. Select this formula, copy it, pause the video, and copy the formula. Go back to our templates, and we want to place the formula right here. Now we're going to paste the formula, but we're going to make corrections. We're going to change this to 6 because here row 5 is the title and our data actually starts in row 6. So just make sure it's row 6. Now we're going to click enter. We have no error message. And if we double click, you can see it's selecting employment status and start date. So it is selecting the correct cell. We're going to do the same thing. Copy, select everything all the way down, right click, paste, formula only. And if we double click, you can see it's selecting this and selecting this, which is correct. Now, I want to make sure that the user knows that these two columns have formulas. So one easy way to do it would just be to highlight the entire column and add a color. And then you can add instructions to the users not to edit any of the columns with this gray color. Now let's go back to our checklist. We have completed the employee database. Next, we're going to add placeholder information to the database. We're going to start by adding a name. And next is to add an image. To do this, click on insert image in cell, click on that. And now you have the different options to grab the image. You can upload it from your computer, or if you have it stored in your Google Drive or Google Images, you can pull it up from there. I will upload images from my computer, so I'll click on browse. And I'm going to use images right here. So I'm going to select the first one. And next, I'll type in an employee ID. So I'll just type in numbers. When I try to double click, I realize that I did not add the date picker option. So I'll do that quickly. Depending on what you're using this for, you may not want to display the year of birth here. So what you can do is click on the entire column, go to format, go to custom date and time, and we're going to select something that just has the month and the date. Okay. So you can scroll until you find something you like. If you don't find something you like, just select whatever shows up. For example, this one, and then you can remove what you want to remove. So we definitely don't want the year to show up. So we're going to click on this arrow and delete. And we can also delete the comma here, apply. Now, every time we select a birthday, only the month and the year shows up. So if we try to do another example for this employee right here, double click. Let's say her birthday is May 20th. May 20th shows up here. Next is selecting the manager's name. Let's assign Taylor Smith to be James's manager. And employment type, full-time, status active. Select the termination date if that applies. If not, leave it blank. And you can see the years of service shows up here. And what I'm going to do is two things. Okay, so I'm going to reformat this date to be consistent with the rest. So select this one. And then for years of service, I don't like how it's showing up in this format. So I'm going to click on that column and go to the decimal places here. We're going to decrease that until it's something we like. So 0.1 is fine as opposed to 0.00 something. And then we can add whatever notes you need to add for this employee. And now I'm just going to copy the data I already have here just to speed up the process of adding data into our template. Here's what it looks like with more information added. Next, I'm going to add a filter to this table. So I'm going to select the entire table all the way down to 1,000. And now I'm going to add this filter. Click on this icon that says create a filter. Just click on it once. You know the filter is applied because it changes from an outline to a darker color. And if we go all the way back up, you can see now our headers have these little icons next to each other. I like to add this to every table because it gives us more options to manipulate this data. For example, if I click right here, I can sort the data based on this column. I can filter. And let's say I wanted to filter by a specific position title. Click back on the icon and I'm just going to clear everything. And let's say I only want to see account managers. So click on that. So now everything is unchecked except for account manager. Click OK. And now it displays our 2 account managers. And to clear it off, go back, select all, click OK, and it brings everything back. By the way, if you want to apply colors to these other drop downs, you can do so as well. So just click on any of them, click on the pencil icon, and then you can assign whatever colors you want. Click on done, and it will assign it to all of them. I'm going to do it for employee status. And here's what it looks like. So let's go back to our checklist and this step is done. Next, we're going to set up the photo directory. So this one right here. I will add a new sheet. So back here, we know we need from A to I and rows 1 to 43. And then we're going to resize the rows and columns. So this would be the border column. So every other column, just select that and resize it to 30. And then this is where the photo is going to go. So select those and we're going to resize these to 300. Then select all the rows, right click, resize it to 30. All right. And then I'm going to resize the header. So right here is the main header. So I'll merge this, select and resize. Let's do 60. And then we can rename this photo directory. All right, so photo directory, make this bigger. Let's do 24, make it bold, and we can also add whatever color we want. So let's go back to our example. Now we're going to create the individual employee directory right here. We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. All right, so let's go back here. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Add a border around it. I'm going to use a darker color and use this border right here and add the outer border. The name's gonna go here, and here is where the image is gonna go. So select this row, right click, resize. We're gonna change it to 300, click enter. Perfect. And then here is going to be a drop down. So if we go back to the example, this first row is a drop down. So you can select whatever employee name and their data shows up here from the database. So going back here, we're going to add a drop down, insert, drop down, and we're gonna do drop down from range. Select the icon, go to our database, this one. We're going to select this column here with all the names, and I'm just selecting some of them, and I'm going to remove the row number so it selects everything automatically. Click OK. I'm going to change this style to arrow or plain text. You can use either or, but the chip doesn't quite fit the aesthetic I'm going for. I'll choose arrow and click done. If you want a cleaner aesthetic, you can change this to the plain text and click done, and it works the same way. There is no arrow, but if you double click, the name will still show up. You can select whomever you want. So let's go ahead and keep formatting this. All right, so now we need to create 3 more. So we're just going to select everything, use paint, paste it here. And now we need to repeat this for the additional rows. Delete this name, select everything, paint format. So we're going to skip this row here one more time, skip this row, put it here and finally the last one. And then what we can do is go ahead and select the second row from each table. So skipping the title, select the second one, and for this, all right, and then we're going to right click and change this to 300. Okay, and then next I'm going to remove the grid. Perfect. So here's what it's looking so far. Next, we're going to add formulas to the photo directory. Here we have the drop downs with the names, and the formulas will go in these sections right here. All right, so I'm going to make this bigger, show you what the formulas look like. It's a very simple filter formula. And of course, I'll pause the video and you can copy it, but I will explain how it works so that if you need to use this template for a different purpose, you're able to tweak the formula accordingly. The first one is going to pull or filter the image that we have added to the database. Here's the formula. It's a very simple filter formula. We're going to filter column C5C where the employee image is. When the name in B4 is this cell right here, so the name matches the name in the database, which is in column B. If we go back to the database, you can see that the image is in column C. So we're telling the formula to filter this image when the name here in B4 matches the name in this column. So that's all the formula is. In the next row, we're going to add the employee's title. So if I double click on that formula, it's the exact same formula. Now this has an if error, but you can ignore it for now. These two formulas are the same. The only difference is that instead of C, this formula is pulling information from column H. If we go back to our database, column H has position title, and that's what shows up here. For the next row, it's the same formula, but this time we're referencing column I. Go back to our database. Column I is the department. If we go back here, you can see the department shows up here, etc. So the only thing we're going to change is the location of the column to vary the information that shows up in these different rows. That means that if you're using this template in a different way, you can still use these formulas. All you need to do is change the column. So let's go ahead and start with the image. Copy this formula. You can pause the video. We're going to paste the formula here. Because this formula is referencing this database, but I'm using database 2, I'm going to change the name of the sheet in the formula. So instead of employee database, delete this and add database 2. If you have a different name for your tabs, here's where you would change it to make sure it references the correct tab. All right, so here's the formula, and I'm going to select an employee to test it. So I'm going to select this employee, and once I select James Brown, the image shows up here. If I go back to the database, James Brown, that's the correct employee right here. So after we've checked that the formula works, double click, copy the formula. Now we're going to paste it here. Double click in the next row, paste it here. Okay, you don't want to copy it like this and paste it here, because if we do this, it's going to change the location of this cell. So if I double click here, now instead of B4, it's selecting B5. We want it to always select B4. So we're going to copy the formula, okay, and then double click in the cell, paste the formula. So we'll paste the formula without making any changes to the locations of the cell automatically. Click enter. Now you're going to see this error message. Ignore it for now. We're going to change this to whatever we want to show up here. So if we want this to be the position in H, we're going to change it here. So double click. Instead of C, change this to H and change this to H. Click enter. Okay, let's add an employee. So have James Brown, the image, and his position shows up. Let's keep going. Use the same formula, paste it here, and we're going to change this from H to I. This is the department. So change this to I, enter, and the department shows up here. Go through each section. Just going to paste the formula into all of the rows, and then you can decide what you want to go in the rows. I'm going to go based on my example, the phone number, email address, and the year that they were hired. So I'll go back to my database. Phone number is in J, email address is in K, so we'll do those two next. Change this from I to J, change the I to J, enter, change this to K. Let's do start date, okay? In column G, change this from I to G, simple as that. Okay, now I'm going to make this smaller so you can see what it looks like. So if you want, you can apply color here. So let's say I choose this color, change the fonts to white, and you can highlight something else. So maybe their departments. You can use different colors for departments too. So let's say we assign this orange color for IT department, and then we can change the color when it comes to another department. So now that we have this, we can then copy this and paste it here. Now the reason we can easily copy and paste is that I have locked these formula ranges. So if we double click, you can see these dollar signs mean that these ranges are locked. If I copy and paste it, it will not shift the range, but this is unlocked, and that's because I do want it to shift when I paste it here. I want it to, instead of selecting B4, I want it to select D4, F4 and H4 respectively. So instead of copying the formula like we did before, if I do that and paste it here, it's gonna just do this. And I don't want this because if I double click, it's referencing this cell. So we don't want that. Just undo. What we're going to do is copy all the formulas. So we have formulas in these cells, copy and paste it here. And this is what it looks like. But now if we double click here, you can see that it's selecting D4, which is exactly what we want. And if we change the name from James Brown to Addison, it changes to Addison's information, as you can see. Okay, so change it to another one, it changes to that employee's information. All right, so we're going to repeat this step and then come back and reassign colors as needed for the different departments. All right, so now that we've done the first set of 4, we can then copy all of them and paste them here. Another way to do it, so I just removed the changes we made. To show you another way to do it is to remove the name, okay? You're going to get these error messages. Don't worry about it. It's showing up because we don't have a name here. Copy this, same thing like we did before. Paste it here, paste, and then copy all of them. Paste them here, and the final one. All right, so here's what it looks like. And then now you can go ahead and assign names. So you can start from the top, James Brown, next Addison James, Aiden Young, and now you can change the color because now we have sales, a different department. So maybe change this to this color. Select the next one, Alexander King. There is a way to automate the color, so it automatically changes color with a different department. But because this is a small database, you can easily change it manually. And then when you run out of space, you can repeat the same steps. Go ahead and add a bunch of rows. Okay, add a few more, and then copy this, like paste it here. Change this second row to 300, and now you have a new set that you can reassign and the employee's name shows up. If you want to print this out, you can do so by clicking on print, and here's what it looks like in a portrait format. You could also change it to landscape, so it prints out like this. And then of course, click on next and follow your printer specifics to print it out. You could also download it as a PDF, by the way. So instead of selecting your printer, you can save it as a PDF. All right, back to our checklist. We have completed this step, and I wanted to show you an additional, which is to use Canva to standardize your images. So what do I mean by that? If we go through our photo directory, you can see all the images fit. So the row is 300 and the column is 300. So it's a square and the images fit in there perfectly. And this is because I standardized the images before I imported them into Google Sheets. So if I were to change an image and just put in a random image, so let's say for James Brown, go back to our database, I'm going to remove this image we have here. I'm just going to pull in a random image that hasn't been standardized. Select this image, click on insert. Let's go back to our photo directory and see what it looks like. Okay, you can see, make this bigger, that it doesn't show up as a square. Okay, it shows up as a rectangle. So if all your images are not already standardized in a square format, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to switch over to Canva and show you how it works. You don't need a paid account to do this. You can use a free account. Go to custom size. Type in 300 by 300 pixels, click on create new design. It's going to open up like this. And now I'm going to go to elements, scroll down until you see frames and grids. We're going to select grids and just click on it once, and then it fits into that square. Then you can duplicate this as many times as you need. And then we're going to go ahead and add in our employee images. So you can upload files from your computer and then pull these images in. And here are the images that I pulled in. And then you can just drag them into the space and release. Okay, so do the rest of them, drag and release and drag and release. Okay, and then you could always readjust them. So if you wanted the images to be bigger, you can readjust that way so they're more consistent. All right, so we're going to save these images on our computer so we can upload them into our Google Sheets template. So to do this, click on share, download, change it to PNG, and select the pages we want. So we're going to select these 4, click done and download. Now you're going to save it to your computer and then upload these images into Google Sheets. Back to our checklist. We're done with this step. Next, I'm going to show you this style of directory that I have for sale. So if you're interested in purchasing a more comprehensive version of what we created today, you can go ahead and do so. And I'm going to check this off because I talked about my Patreon membership already. So if you join my Patreon, you get access to these templates as well as templates that I have created in other previous tutorials with all of the formulas in place so you can tweak it to your specific needs without having to recreate it from scratch. Alright, so here is what my template copy looks like. You have a tab to customize it. We have a template directory similar to what we just created. In addition to that, we have a dashboard so you can display the information that summarizes the information from the directory. You have one for a general photo directory. You have another one for new hire / employee welcome. So you can select the month and select the year, and it shows all the employees that were hired in January 2024, for example. And we also have another one that's for birthday. birthdays. So all you need to do is select the month, and it shows the employees that have birthdays in January, February, March, etc. And then we have an employee anniversary similar to the one for birthday. You select the month and it shows you all the employees with anniversaries in that month. And then finally we have the custom directory, which is what we created today, where you can select an employee like we did before, and it shows that employee's information in this structure. So if you're interested in purchasing this template, that's another way to support me. But if not, go ahead and use the free template, and that is more than enough to get you started. I will leave links in the description box so you can go ahead and grab your copy if you are interested. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.